lost my company. I had over $50,000 a month going to people on contract who did not deliver the work that they were contracted to do and who missed their deadlines without any accountability and who took full advantage of my generosity and my compassion because I allowed it. The old business paradigm is crumbling before our eyes, and the world needs high-achieving entrepreneurs who are ready to break the mold. Welcome to the Epic AF podcast, where groundbreaking, paradigm-shifting change is the only option. If you're done with standard methods and you're ready to disrupt, then you are in the right place. I'm Kelly O'Neill, an award-winning brand strategist, visionary leader, and unapologetic entrepreneur. This podcast is more than a show. It's a hub for big thinkers, the disruptors, and those that are ready to shatter outdated expectations. Subscribe now, and let's rewrite the rules of entrepreneurship together. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Epic AF. I am your host, Kelly O'Neill. And if you are here and listening to this podcast, you are a visionary entrepreneur or a maverick entrepreneur that is looking to disrupt the status quo and shake things up and live life and do business on your own terms. So if that's you, you are in the right place. So if you are brand new to this podcast and this is the first episode that you happen to be catching, I'm going to want you to do one thing for me, and that's pause and go back to the beginning, because this season is all about giving you the entire epic journey, and it is sequential. So for those of you who have been with me, let's dive in. So last episode, we talked all about creating life with integrity and about really aligning with your values. Now I'm going to tell you how to protect that. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about guardrails for greatness, and that is embracing boundaries as self-care. So for those of you who need to learn how to establish boundaries or enforce them, this one's for you. Let's dive in. All right, so one of the hardest things that I ever had to learn, and something that I struggled with until, frankly, very recently, was the art of effective boundaries. So growing up in a dysfunctional home, I just frankly wasn't allowed to have personal boundaries. And if I dared set them up, they were quickly ignored or taken as like a cue to trample over them. Like they were like an invitation to get trampled on. So when I finally started my own healing journey, I learned to set boundaries, right? And I read all the books about setting boundaries. But let's be real. This is what I was terrible at. I was terrible at enforcing them. You know, it's kind of like if you, it like reminds me of like one of those kids where like your kid brother like pokes you and you're like, hey, stop it. I don't like that. And they're like, okay, I'm going to do it again. And they poke you and you're like, no, I said stop it. And then this goes on 24 more times, right? Like that's the life that I was living. And here's the truth. Healthy boundaries are essential. And they're more than just like developing lines in the sand. They're a framework for how we let others treat us. It's how we respect our time and how we honor our epic. Okay. So boundaries really communicate what we will and what we will not tolerate. And they are really, really crucial to protecting your energy, your well-being, and your focus. And as you continue to dive deeper into this journey of becoming epic AF, the need for solid boundaries will become abundantly clear. Okay. Because let's face it, if the world isn't built on epic AF values, most people are not going to operate at this level, right? Remember, society is groomed to celebrate mediocrity and to uphold shallow values and to kind of test anyone that steps outside of those lines. So your epic boundaries and your standards are going to be uber inconvenient for a lot of people. The clearer and more resolved that you become in your commitment to living epic, the more apparent that the essential nature of mastering boundaries is going to become to you. Okay? So let's talk about that. Mastering the art of setting boundaries, and even more importantly, enforcing them without a single fuck to give when people complain. It's going to be crucial for you. Okay. So I want to talk about boundaries in business and kind of a lesson that I learned the really, really hard way. So after I lost my business, I made a vow to set and enforce boundaries like never before. Because the truth was, I had a lot of people fucking off in my business, right? I had a lot of people that were on contract, that they were missing deadlines. They weren't hitting their KPIs. They were telling me they were working 40-hour weeks when they were working 20. They told me that they were exclusive to me and they had 10 other clients on the side, right? And one of the other things is that despite all of this behavior, when they came to me every week, I would I'd maybe complain about things, or I'd be like, no, this is a hard boundary. Like, you need to hit your deadlines and and then I would pay them, right? I would just pay them anyway. So they didn't do their job, and yet I continued to pay them, okay? So I had to, when I started my new business, I developed very strong boundaries around paying contractors. So here's my policy. I'm just going to tell you what it is. I hire you, or said contractor, to perform work. You complete the work to the standard of excellence I set out and you agreed upon when I contracted you for the work. And I pay you. That's pretty simple, right? Like, you would think so. You would think that everyone would get that. That's super simple. But you would not believe the amount of people who struggle with this concept. This lack of boundary enforcement around performance and payment was one of the biggest reasons that I lost my company, because I paid people whether they performed or not. I paid people whether they honored their contract or not, because I wanted to be a person of integrity who honored my word and my contract. And I wanted to show them, even though they weren't honoring, it sounds stupid now, right? But I wanted to show them that, like, this is what integrity looks like when you honor your word, okay? I'm gonna say that again. So yes, these people did all of this horrible shit because I allowed it. I allowed it all the way until the business went under. And then when it came time to pay those who actually did their work and who actually did honor their contracts, I could not, because I did not have enough business and I did not have enough revenue, because of the people who were hired to generate the revenue who were not. They didn't do their job that I contracted them to do, right? So then I couldn't pay the people who did. You see how that works? Legally, once you go insolvent, and this is maybe not something, hopefully none of you know this, but legally, once you go insolvent and you have outstanding invoices, like, you don't get to pick and choose who gets paid, right? And that gut punched me in the worst way. And I will tell you, it was a major hit to my integrity and to my business and to the people who had honored their agreements. And I will tell you, that experience was bar none one of, if not probably, it was bar none the most painful of my professional life. And it left wounds in me that I am still healing from, right? I am still healing from that, because when they didn't honor their contracts, right? So they were not in integrity. It created it so that I was in integrity, and I then didn't align with my own values. And I will tell you, I am much harder on myself than I am on other people. So from that moment on, I swore I would never let that happen again. And my boundaries became fierce and clear. Now our payment terms are clearly outlined in all of our contracts. They are reinforced in their onboarding training and onboarding meeting. They are supported by a very strict billing and project management system. And this system ensures that if work isn't completed to spec, that payment isn't made to that contract, period. And yet, despite this, and we even at this point have them actually go through an acknowledgement form with our HR and culture department, where they then say, I acknowledge that I have read the billing policy. I acknowledge that I have, that I have read the payments policy. I acknowledge the quality to excellence, commitments. And yet, you guys, I cannot make this shit up. Yet, despite all of this, every quarter, like clockwork, there is at least one contractor in one of my companies who think that they can slide by without doing the work outlined in their contract, and then they still expect payment. They still expect payment. And then let me tell you, they are flabbergasted when their invoice isn't paid. And they project all of their unhealed traumas on my leadership team or our HR or our business department or me. They act out like toddlers often. And occasionally, one of them will even cross a bigger boundary line and also break a contractual agreement and post nonsense about me or my companies online. And at that point, my attorney steps in because I'm not going to waste my epic. My attorney steps in and she handles it swiftly and decisively, right? And look, this isn't about being harsh. It's about protecting my business. It's about living to my values and holding my epic AF standards high. Look, no one ever has a problem with these policies when they're a person of integrity. It's only the ones who break it that have a problem with this. I do not have a problem with it. And quite frankly, if someone has a problem with it when they come to work with me, they should not work with me, and we tell them that. Like, if you've got a problem with this, don't work here. Because this is the standard that we operate with at this company or these companies. This is how we roll, okay? It also weeds out people that we would have had problems with eventually anyways. So we're actually doing ourselves a favor. So guys, listen, welcome to the world of mediocrity, folks. This is where people think giving kids participation trophies for 8th place is a good thing, right? This is what that mentality creates. So boundaries are basically, I want to sum this up for you. They are self-care for the epic AF life, okay? Here's the takeaway from my story. Boundaries are not just important, they are non-negotiable. They are the ultimate form of self-care, and they are a necessary foundation for an epic AF life. They are what protect your energy. They're what help you prioritize your purpose and stay aligned with your highest self. Here's the other thing for those of you who are like, I don't know if I could do that. Let me just tell you, they're normal, they're healthy, and they're absolutely critical in creating a life that feels free, grounded, and aligned. Now, be forewarned, because I always want to give you guys the truth. Some people, in fact, I will tell you that a lot of people are going to be downright offended by your boundaries. Some will kick, they will scream, they will make you the villain of their story. And you know what? Those are exactly the people who you need those boundaries for the most, because they are the ones who are going to be they're the ones that are going to be the most pissed off. They're going to create the most drama, and they are usually the ones that benefited the most from you not having any boundaries in the first place. So don't let their discomfort sway you. Your epic is the priority. So as part of your action step, what I want you to do is I want you to start setting some boundaries and enforcing them, right? This isn't about making a list and like calling it a day. Again, like none of this stuff is. Like this is literally the way I live my life. Setting boundaries is like a multi-step process that involves identifying, communicating, and enforcing them with clarity and consistency. So in the Epic AF workbook, you are going to find a worksheet to be able to do this for yourself, right? And I want you to start by listing the areas in your life and work where you need stronger boundaries, because we all can find places where we need that, okay? They could be things like protecting your time. This is one that can get me and actually people on my team. And I'll ask them when they start to get overwhelmed or they're feeling like, like they've got too much on their plate, so they're starting to burn out. I'll be like, how's that protecting your time going, right? Have you set boundaries? Have you set limits, right? It could look like valuing your work, setting clear payments structures, setting performance terms for your employees or your contractors. Could be about maintaining personal space and privacy, right? Like setting limits with family or friends. You know who they are. They probably know who they are. And then once you've got that list, ask yourself, like, why each boundary is essential to you and your well-being. Like, what is the boundary? And then why is setting it essential? And then again, just like I said with the values, please don't blindside people. Like, that's not fair. Like, if before you let, Tom at work, like, get away with all the shit, and then now all of a sudden you're like, he does something and you're like, you're fired. He's like, what? He's like, this has been totally acceptable for the last 5 years. And you're like, like, you got to give people a minute. So this looks like really setting a boundaries conversation, like, and it'll sound like something like this for me. Sue, one of the things that I'd notice, and I take personal responsibility for it, like this is a work conversation. One of the things that I've noticed is I really have let one of my core boundaries, like I have done a terrible job of enforcing it. And this is something that I really feel like you've been violating a lot, which also means I probably did a really terrible job of clearly communicating to you what my boundaries are, because I trust that if you knew what my boundary was around this, that you would do your absolute best to not violate it. So what I want to do is I want to communicate something to you that's really, really important to me, because it really aligns with my value around this and that, and being in integrity and delivering excellent work and setting up a stage of epic. So when we set deadlines at this company, it's not a suggestion, right? We're setting this deadline because there's other people behind you, and we don't want to have 4 people on your team work the weekend because you didn't prioritize your time well. So I'm going to need you to go back. And first, here's the thing I want you to know. Missing deadlines is not acceptable. So the first thing that I need you to do is I need you to sit down, and I need you to look at everything that's overdue. And I need you to come up with a plan for you to get this rectified by the end of the week. And if that's not something you're able to do, I need you to communicate to me why you're not going to be able to meet that deadline. The next thing I need you to do is I need you to shore up and plan for next week. And if you need help with that, I want you to go collaborate with Jen, who's really good at this, and she's going to help you out, right? And in the future, I'm going to ask that you make a promise with me that you are going to hit your deadlines. And if you're not able to hit them, I want you to let me know in advance. Can you agree to that? Because it's really important to me. And then you're going to get the commitment. But do you notice how, like, I'm taking that on myself first? Like, hey, I did this. I'm taking responsibility. I'm now taking responsibility to communicate with you. I'm telling you what my expectations are. And I'm telling you what, oftentimes I'll even tell my team what the consequences are of violating that boundary, right? And you need to just do it in a loving, compassionate, yet assertive way. And now they know. And now it's on them, right? Now it's on them. And you need to then enforce your boundaries. So that means that if Sue violates this, or whoever, Jen, whatever, whoever violates this, like, there needs to be consequences. Maybe that consequence is terminating her employment. Maybe that consequence is, docking her pay. Maybe that I don't know what the consequence is. You're going to have to figure those things out, but you need to do this. And by the way, we need to do this with our kids too. Our kids learn from us. And as a parent, when I set a boundary, like, I'm setting a boundary. And once you start doing that, they'll eventually stop trying to test those boundaries. They'll be like, yeah, you don't want to fuck with her. Like, she's not kidding around. Like, you're not going to be going to Jenny's sleepover this weekend if you don't, get your chores done, right? So please make sure that you are setting and enforcing these boundaries in your life, and that you are communicating with people. And sometimes it's not just verbally. It could also be in writing. Like, at work, we don't pull punches. We put it all in writing. Okay. So another example could be I only respond to work messages during business hours. Now, that's not one that's for me, but that's not important to me. I want to be there for my team and I want to be there for my clients. Okay? So again, put it in writing. You want to put these things in writing, if not just for yourself, but in business, good contracts make good neighbors. So put it in writing, right? Put it in your contracts, your agreements, your policies, remind people, whether it's a project deadline, payment terms, standards for work completion, put it all on paper. It makes it concrete and enforceable. And again, like I said before, plan your response, right? Know how you're going to handle this in advance. And also, you don't have to be an asshole when you're asserting your boundaries. Like sometimes no, that's a complete sentence, right? Like, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's not going to work for me. Thank you for asking though. I appreciate that. Like you don't need to be a jerk. So know how you're going to handle this, whether that's, someone breaking your payment terms or whatever it is. Know, or like whether it's a friend that's pushing your limits, know so that you can respond confidently, right? So let me give you another example response. I understand that you'd like a response now, but as I mentioned, I'm not available during the evening hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get back to you first thing in the morning. Okay. Again, that's not one for me because I value the excellence in client service over that, but that might be one for you guys, right? Here's another one. This work does not meet our agreed upon standards. So payment is going to be withheld until it's completed as discussed. Thank you. Right? Stand firm and you need to follow through. Here's the deal. Boundaries mean nothing if you don't enforce them. And when someone pushes against these boundaries, you've got to stand firm because remember, every single time that you uphold a boundary, you're protecting your energy and honoring your self-worth, right? But every time that you allow someone to cross it, you're teaching them that it's okay to cross your boundaries. And you do not want to do that with kids or adults who did not learn this as children. Look, I know to some of you that enforcing a boundary feels challenging. I need you to remind yourself while you're setting it in the first place. Visualize the negative consequences of letting it slide and the positive aspects of standing firm. Boundaries are so much more than just lines. They're foundations that support an epic life. And they are an active expression of the self-respect and commitment to yourself and your values. It is the ultimate form of loving yourself. And remember, if someone is offended by your boundaries, that is their issue, not yours. Boundaries protect what matters most and create the structure that allows you to thrive. So don't be afraid to set them and don't be afraid to enforce them. All right, guys, until next time, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Epic AF. I want to know what you thought. What are some of the most important boundaries that you've set in your life? What are boundaries that you're struggling with? And let me know your questions. Find me on social, find this episode, and leave me a comment. Talk soon.